Hello and welcome to the Till Death Do Us Part gameplay walkthrough. My name is Scott Langto and I'm the creator of Till Death Do Us Part. The first thing I need to say right off the bat is thank you to the over 1,600 Kickstarter backers who came out in support of this game. Without you, it would not be sitting in front of me today. So thank you. Till Death Do Us Part is essentially a strategy card game with a little bit of deck building and a whole lot of gotcha, wherein all players sitting around the table are assuming the role of gold digger. And by gold digger, I don't mean sitting and panning for gold in the Old West. I mean marrying and burying the richest old codger you can find in Goldmine Park and helping them meet their maker as quickly as humanly possible. A little dastardly, but also hopefully a lot of fun. Something that you will need to do multiple times in a game to hit that magic number of $150 million in ill-gotten inheritance. Okay? While Till Death Do Us Part is essentially a card game, there is still a board used for tracking. At the start of the game, each player will choose one of 6 player pawns. We have a bingo card, we've got a pill organizer, a rocking chair, hard candy, dentures in a glass of water, and pink fuzzy slippers. Perhaps a little theme there. There are 3 of each. Each player will draw one set, place one of the pawns in front of them. I'm using the bingo card. Place one in front of you to indicate who you are to the other players throughout the game. You'll place another one at the courthouse, and you'll place the third one at the 2 on the outside of the board. The outside of the board, as I said, runs from 2 to 150 in even numbers, and those represent millions of dollars. Each player is dealt 8 cards and one of 40 Ulster target cards. These are rich Ulsters that will be your intended target. The first one is random, and then after this kind old man is done away with, I will have a say in who my subsequent target becomes. At the center of the board on the lake are 180 action cards. They are the ones with the title of the game on the back. They need to be shuffled incredibly well. I repeat, they need to be shuffled incredibly well. When you first get the game, there are a number of cards that are the same or similar, and they need to be well dispersed throughout the deck. Consequently, later in the game, if they need to be shuffled again, they need to be shuffled very well again because many of them are played in pairs or many of them counteract one another. So, they're on one side of the lake, the other side of the lake becomes the discard pile. There is also a set of 54 Last Will and Testament cards, and these are cards that are read upon the demise of each and every Ulster that may or may not affect the value of that Ulster's estate. Okay? There are 2 6-sided damage dice that are for health damage on any given Ulster, and a 4-sided health dice which improves the health of any given Ulster at any time. Okay? On the board, there is a roadway that runs from the courthouse to the cemetery, a rest in peace sign at the cemetery. There are 18 spaces from the courthouse to the cemetery, and that's how many spaces or crosswalks on the board that it takes to basically push an Ulster's health beyond the limit to where they end up no longer being with us. Okay? Beside the board is Goldmine Park. We place the Goldmine Park sign there, and the next 6 Ulsters off the top of the deck are lined up left to right, and these become the targets each player will select from as the game progresses. Now, select somebody to be dealer. That person will essentially make sure the Goldmine Park is always resupplied throughout the game. They will make sure that the action cards are always thoroughly shuffled, and they will also, most importantly, make sure that on the demise of any specific Ulster in the game, they will oversee the accounting of that Ulster's estate, the tabulating of the final score, and the placement of that score along the board for any given player, as well as making sure that that player receives their next intended target before the gameplay resumes. Okay. So, all players have received their 8 cards, along with their first random Ulster target. I've got Lester Bushman here. He's a lottery winner who is worth $58 million. But I don't get anything from Lester if he were to pass away because we're not married. So the very first thing all players need to do is marry their intended target, okay? You do that with a marriage certificate from your hand. You can lay it down immediately if there is one in your hand. If you don't have a marriage certificate, you can use a wild card in place of a marriage certificate. If you look at the card, there are a number of icons on this card which tell you the things this wild card can do. And one of them is operate as a marriage certificate. So I could slap that down instead as a marriage certificate. Anyone at the table who is now married immediately before the game begins takes their pawn from the courthouse, slaps it on the start space, and they can do anything they want now in the game, including harming their ulster. Okay? If I had no marriage certificate or a wild card and I'm not married, I can do anything in the game. I can play any card that I want, with the exception of doing anything that harms my ulster, because we're not yet married. Okay? If by the third round of play, I still do not have a marriage certificate or a wild card to use as one, I still bump out of the courthouse into the start space because of a common law marriage trigger. We've been together long enough, we're just married. You bounce out to the start space and you're given a free play on that turn as well. Okay, so what are some of the things I can do while I'm waiting to marry Lester so that I can put him into harm's way and start earning some money? Well, I can add value to Lester's estate. I can take away value from other people's estate. I can force other players into prenuptial agreements, miraculously heal their ulcers, cause divorces, blackmail people, hand out care packages to improve the health of their ulcers. All things we'll cover as we talk about the cards moving forward. Each player's turn consists of essentially one action. That action could be laying a card that positively impacts their ulcer's value or future. It could be a card played to attack another opponent, or it could be cards that are just tossed away because they currently don't have value in your hand, or you don't like the cards for whatever reason. On any player's turn, they may use that turn to discard up to 2 cards that they don't like, they don't currently see value in, or that may come into play later but are taking up valuable real estate at the moment. They can throw those cards away on their turn and draw new ones, but that is their turn. It is the only action they get on that turn. Now, let's talk about the cards. Let's start with green and red ATM cards. The green ATM cards add value to your own ulcer's estate, while red ATM cards obviously take away value from your opponent's estate. Now, at the start of the game, it's best to just think offensively, because no one has progressed on the board. No one's ulcer is in any poor state of health. There haven't been any bump offs yet. No one has any money. So attacking other players doesn't really get you much of anything. So finding real estate in your hand and the ability to do harm to your ulcer and propel them to the graveyard to get your first bump off is really what's key at the start of the game. So how do you do that? How do I harm my ulcer on my turn? Well, one of the ways is to put a plan into action. So I match a plan card in my hand with any inaction card. There are 4 categories of action cards: accidents, cardiac arrests, sinister outings, and bucket list sabotages. I can match my plan card with any one of those, and I lay them as a pair on my turn, and I have to announce I'm putting a plan into action. Accident with a firm push. If I don't announce it, I only get to roll 1 dice. Okay? If someone catches me, I only get to roll 1 dice. But I did announce the pairing of those 2 cards, so I get to roll both damage dice. I roll it. Ha ha! I have rolled a 9. So my little piece would have, from the start space, would have gone 9 spaces, which is over halfway to the graveyard. When I reach the rest in peace sign, my ulcer will have passed away. So that's the first way to harm my ulcer. How do I harm my ulcer in another way? Well, there's an instant damage card. This instant damage roll requires nothing. Just on my turn, I lay it, taking an instant damage roll, and I get to roll 1 damage dice. In this case, I would have had a 1. I would have progressed another 1. These are on separate turns, of course. Let's say I didn't have a plan card in my hand to match with any inaction card. Remember we were talking about those icons on the wild card? Well, the wild card can also be matched up with any inaction card or an instant damage roll card to turn those into double rolls. I can use the wild card in place of a plan card and get that double roll, or I can match it with an instant damage roll card to be able to roll both dice. Okay? So now I'm 8 spots from the rest in peace sign where I will officially bump off Lester. Other players start thinking to themselves, hey, we gotta slow him down. We have to improve that ulcer's health. How do they do that? Well, what's the gold digger's bargain? You're the hot young thing out for their money, but what do they want? What do they get out of the relationship? The booty. That's right. You have to put out. So somebody slaps me with a have sex now card, okay? Forcing me to have marital relations with my ulcer, which improves their blood flow, gets their circulation going, gets them the vim and vigor, and it improves their health. So sex improves the ulcer's health. So they're trying to force me to have sex with my ulcer, which is going to force me to roll the health dice, which will back me up. That is the 4-sided dice, okay? So I would have to roll this 4-sided dice and back up that number. Now, they may also play their Have Sex Now card on me and include a fetish card, which is a boost to the Have Sex Now card. It augments the damage by 2 points as indicated on the card. So they play a fetish card with the Have Sex Now card because my ulcer is apparently in defeat. So I have to now back up 2 plus an additional 2. So my bingo card backs up 4 further into better health. Okay? Now, let's say in my hand, I have the old faithful Not Tonight card. Okay? Oops, sorry, the dog is watching. I can block both of those cards, Not Tonight, and I wouldn't have backed up at all. Now let's move on to some general cards that you'll find in the card stack. We have the Care Package. This simply pushes an opponent back 3 spaces in health. You sent them a gift box with medication, yada, 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 pushes them back 3 spaces on the board into better health. The Lay Low card, which is also very important throughout the game. You slap it on a player at any given time, and that player cannot hurt their ulcer for that round of play. It's their responsibility to know that after they've had 1 turn of not harming their ulcer, they can discard it back into the discard pile. But it stops somebody from harming their ulcer, particularly if they're close to a bump off or if they're close to a winning bump off. Okay, important card. Blackmail cards. They come in $4 million, $6 million, and $8 million. This card gets slapped in front of a player and stays with that ulcer for the life of that ulcer. Okay? At the end of that ulcer's life, this blackmail amount will be paid out to the person who played the card on them. The Pick of the Litter card is a card that is played on a living ulcer, whether I play it on myself or an opponent, and what it does is it stays with that recipient's ulcer for the lifetime of that ulcer. When the ulcer passes away, if I played it on myself, for example, I can then hand pick whoever I want from the park without rolling for it. So of course, I'm going to pick the character with the highest value or the best perks. If I had previously played it on an opponent's ulcer, when that ulcer passes away, I get to handpick their replacement, which of course will be the lowest value or the worst perked ulcer in the park. Miraculous Recovery and Hitman cards, 2 of the most powerful cards in the entire game, which explains why there's only 2 of each in the entire deck. Miraculous Recovery sends any ulcer back into immediate health. So any opponent who's getting a little too big for their britches, getting too close to winning, getting too many bump offs, send their current ulcer back to the start space. Hire a hitman instantly bumps off your ulcer, but it costs $26 million to do so. Some people use this card mid-game to get themselves on the board if they've been languishing behind the others and they need a quick payout. But most people save this card in their hand until that last ulcer, when they need a quick few million just to win, but they've got to go through depleting that current ulcer's health just to get the money. No, they don't. They can get married to that ulcer and on their next turn, invoke this card, immediately bump off that ulcer, pay off the hitman, and still have enough money to win the game. Divorce card. Divorce card can be used at any time during the game, and you slap it on an opponent, and what it is that person immediately gets divorced, which means they get, however, half of the value of that particular ulcer. So you're essentially giving them money. I'm going to get 58 million. So when I'm down closer to bumping him off, I'm going to get this money anyway. So a player may decide to slap me with a divorce so that I only get half of his value. I'm going to bump him off anyway. See, someone tries to get me into a divorce, so I only get half of his value, okay? He goes away, back into the stack, I would get a new ulster, and I would get half of the value. However, I may have a Lawyer Up card. The Lawyer Up card is one of the most valuable cards to have in your hand at all times because it can get you out of any number of issues. All the items it can get you out of are listed right here on the card as well. So having a Lawyer Up card in your hand is always worth the real estate. We are now moving on to the last 4 cards in the deck. And these last 4 cards are all part of the same category. And that category is cards that can only be played when the recipient is still in the honeymoon phase. If you look at the board, the first 9 crosswalks are white, The second 9 are yellow. When you cross that last white crosswalk, you'll see a sign that says honeymoon is over. When you hit that first yellow crosswalk, that Ulster is now out of the honeymoon phase, and these cards can no longer be used on them. So they're cards you want to hit somebody with while they're still in the honeymoon phase. And why are they important? Card number 1, prenuptial agreement. I can slap somebody with a prenuptial agreement while they're still in the honeymoon phase. And what this card does is that player has to choose 2 numbers between 1 and 6 and roll 1 damage dice. Let's say I pick a 2 and a 4. Okay, I hit a 1. I didn't hit one of my numbers, so I need to sign the prenuptial agreement and it stays with me. The thing about the prenuptial agreement is if that card is in front of a player and that player is forced into a divorce, they don't get half the money. They only get what's listed on the prenuptial agreement card. And in this case, it's only $14 million. So the prenuptial card, they have to sign it because they didn't roll one of their 2 numbers. Okay? Now, they can choose to slap it immediately with a lawyer up card and be done with it, and the prenuptial agreement is gone. Or they can save a lawyer up card, or if they don't have one, they can keep the prenuptial agreement card and hope that later, if they're forced into a divorce, they'll have a lawyer card at that time so they don't get stuck with that. Marriage annulment and the Ulster family pays you off. These 2 cards essentially function the same, they're just for different amounts. And what they do is they immediately end a marriage while it's in the honeymoon phase. You can play either of these cards on yourself to get out of a marriage or play it on an opponent. Why would you play these cards on yourself for these low amounts of $8 million and $6 million? Well, let's say I'm within $8 or $6 million of winning the game. Okay? I immediately marry this person, jump out, play this, take a quick pittance, and it pushes me over the $150 million. Or somebody has a character, somebody has an Ulster that is worth a huge amount of money. They've gotten Malcolm here for $64 million, and they've added $10 million to it, and they've added another $10 million to it. So he's now worth $84 million, but they're still in the honeymoon phase. I can force them into an annulment or a family payout, and they only get $6 or $8 million of that man's value, and he goes away. So, last but not least, also within the honeymoon phase, the Ulster swap card. This card, when played on an opponent, both of you swap Ulsters and all of the cards that go with it. You swap everything in front of you. So, let's say Mr. Malcolm Reynolds was over here with $64 million, and I've got somebody who's worth $30 million, and I decide, you know what? I want that guy. So I'm here ready to bump off my guy, but you're still up in the honeymoon phase. I do a quick swap, and I'm going to quickly double the amount I get when I bump the person off. So the Ulster swap, painful and powerful. So what happens when an Ulster passes away? Poor Lester here has taken hit after hit after hit, and he has now landed on the rest in peace sign near the graveyard. He has passed away. The person to my left now reads the last will and testament, which in this case reads, your beloved recently invested $12 million on the advice of a psychic. The crystal ball predicts it's gone. So I just lost $12 million of his value, which really stinks. So they do the math from the cards that are in front of me. I've got 58 million plus the 6 that I added brings me up to 64 million, but somebody else gets 6 because they blackmailed me, and I'm back down to 58 million. I log my 58 million on the board, and whoever blackmailed me, would log the additional 6. Okay, then all my cards go away. These get dumped in the discard. The Ulster gets flipped over, and you can read the epitaph on the back of the card if you want. It says, if this headstone's a rockin', don't come a knockin'. So gameplay has stopped while I calculated my Ulster's net worth, and now I need to get a new Ulster before game continues. So I essentially go to Goldmine Park. I roll the dice. I got a 6. I look through the Ulsters, and I land, unfortunately, on the second lowest value character on the list. However, he has a perk where I get to double any ATM card I play on him during his lifetime. So I need to decide if I'm going to accept Gilbert or not accept Gilbert. If I don't accept Gilbert, I can stay in the park, which are the numbers in the center of the board. So let's say I choose to stay. Gilbert was number 6. I would take my pawn that was at the rest in peace sign, put it on space number 6, and on my next turn, I would roll again from space number 6 to see who I would get. So let's jump ahead to my next turn. I would roll again and I get a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have landed on Malcolm Reynolds and I got lucky and he's worth 64 million. I would now take him. He goes in front of me. And if I had a marriage certificate card, I would slap it down immediately, or a wild card, and I'm ready to go, and play continues. Okay, I want to just add a couple of quick thoughts about how the cards should lay out on the table. You work left to right, starting with your Ulster card. Now, no one can block their Ulster card's value at any time, or any cards that would affect the value of your estate. It needs to be available and visible to all players at all times, okay? So there's that. Cards that stay in front of you are the cards that affect your Ulster's estate, like positive and negative ATM cards, blackmail cards, pick of the litter cards, prenuptial agreement cards, cards that are going to need to be referenced upon the demise of that Ulster, okay? All other cards like have sex now cards that may or may not get blocked, divorce cards, attacks on your own Ulster, those just go directly to the discard pile, okay? Because they don't need to take up real estate on the table. And they need to be available for if that deck gets reshuffled and become available for everybody else for the rest of the game. So there you have it. That's Till Death Do Us Part. Hopefully you'll have a great time playing. Please understand that the first time you play through is really just a learning curve game. By the second and third time you're playing, you're rocking and rolling and you really know how to dig in and get at each other and use the best strategies and really have a good time. I have found that more often than not, there's a surprise winner, because usually as someone kind of breaks out and starts taking the lead, the rest of the table starts ganging up on them, and it allows the rest of the table to sort of catch up, and there ends up being a surprise winner. You can talk to each other. You can't look at each other's hand, but you can talk to one another and just kind of throw it out to the table. Hey, looks like so-and-so could maybe use a divorce, or hey, someone's on their last bump off and will win if they increase the value of their current person by 10 million. So we need to do something about that. So you can talk with the table about needing to take care of something to keep it exciting. And there you go. Have fun. Let me know what you think. Take care, and thanks again. Enjoy.